Today's video is brought to you by Card Kingdom, and you can pre-order all the Double Masters cards you need now over at cardkingdom.com. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another daily dose of Double Master spoilers, and we are creeping towards the end of spoiler season. We are up over 85% of the rares and mythics revealed, so very close to the end, but we still have some mythics to talk about today, good and bad news, but let's jump right into it, start talking about sweet new Double Masters reprints, and we're going to start off with two disappointing mythics. Yesterday, we talked about Geth being disappointing. Well, today, the parade of not great mythics to wrap up Double Master spoiler season has continued. Maelstrom Nexus is a sweet card. 5-color enchantment lets you Cascade with your first spell each turn, which is definitely sweet in a 5-color commander deck, but not especially valuable. Karthus, Tyrant of Jund, a sweet dragon commander card, also not especially valuable. Both of these cards are already in the like $4 range, which isn't really what you're hoping for if you get lucky enough to hit a mythic in a $15 pack, or God forbid, a $100 VIP pack. However, rather than just complaining about the cheapness of these, I think it's worth looking into why these cards are cheap and kind of what happened, because I feel like in this case, this is more of a mistake on Wizards' part, or Wizards not understanding the Magic market, maybe making too many products, than Wizards just blatantly being like, let's put some bad mythics in a $15 pack. So why are Maelstrom Nexus and Karthus $4 mythics? Because they weren't in the very recent past. Like, if you go back 6 months in the past, these were both not expensive mythics, but they were in the $15 range, which is a reasonable low-end mythic in a $15 pack. The thing is, both of these cards were reprinted in the store edition of Mystery Boosters as foils, Maelstrom Nexus and Karthus. And if you look at the price of these cards, the original printings of these cards are still in the like $12 to $15 range, but the Mystery Booster foils crushed their prices. They brought the prices down to under $4. You can get a foil Mystery Booster copy for under $4 at either of these. So I feel like Wizards, one of two things happen. One is either in their hurry to get out another master set to release mystery boosters, their hurry to just release as many products as possible, which is something we've talked about, just as product overload. Maybe Wizards didn't take into account something, didn't cross paths. You had one team making mystery boosters, another team working on double masters, and they didn't really take into account how much the foil reprinting would crush prices. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is Wizards just didn't realize that being reprinted as a foil in a mystery booster was going to bring down prices as much as they did, because mystery boosters absolutely devastated the prices on these cards, which, I mean, is a good thing. We want these cards to be cheap. The sad thing is, you were opening foil Maelstrom Nexuses and Karthuses in a normally priced mystery booster pack in a slot that showed up once per pack not that long ago. Now you're going to be opening them at a mythic rarity in a $50 pack. So I feel like that is kind of the bad beats of these cards. So I feel like this was probably unintentional. I think when Wizards was putting together Double Masters, I think they thought of Maelstrom Nexus and Karthus as like $15, $20 mythics, which, you know, not high-end Jaces, but reasonable mythics to put in a master set. But the mystery booster reprinting caught them by surprise, miscommunication, something, and by the time Double Masters was revealed, these are kind of getting in the Tree of Redemption range of mythics rather than be a good exciting mythics. We also saw this to some extent with Sen Triplets, which was really expensive, got the mystery booster foil treatment, dropped out a ton in price, and Sen Triplets, because it has more demand than Maelstrom Nexus and Karthus, is still like a $15-ish rare, dropping now down under 10. It's still like a $15-ish mythic, dropping now with the second reprint in Double Masters down to like 8, but I feel like this wasn't intentional on Wizards' part, and they definitely messed up to have all these cards at Mythic and Double Masters. The good news is, these cards are sweet. Maelstrom Nexus does see a lot of play in 5-color commander decks. You don't need to have any real specific purpose for it. If you're playing Jagatha, Ramos, Joda, essentially any 5-color deck, Maelstrom Nexus just letting you Cascade for the first spell you cast each turn, so on your turn and your opponent's turn, is a very powerful effect. So there is a reason to open this card and have it in your collection. Same is true of Karthus. Karthus shows up in a lot of dragon decks, giving all your dragons haste. In a deck like the Ur-Dragon, Scion of the Ur-Dragon, even Darigaz, if you're playing a dragon theme, is a really powerful effect, and Karthus does have the tiniest bit of fridge value for formats like Modern, where it is a good Dragonstorm dragon. If you are Dragonstorming and trying to put a bunch of dragons into play for free, something like Karthus to give all of your dragons haste, along with Atarka to give your dragons double strike, and it's big and flying and trampling, those two dragons by themselves coming into play and attacking with haste is just a one-shot kill with Dragonstorm. So while Karthus and Maelstrom Dexes are not valuable mythics anymore, and they are sadly going to be mythics that you're disappointed to open in your Double Masters pack, because the value is just not there, they are playable, and the good news of all this is, it wasn't that long ago that if you wanted a Maelstrom Nexus for your commander deck, or a Karthus for your Dragon commander deck, you were going to have to spend $15 or $20 for a copy. Now you're going to be able to get these powerful commander cards for $2 or something ridiculously cheap. So there is a silver lining, even though being that cheap, especially right in the back of showing up in a normally priced booster, is a little bit disappointing for a $15 pack. We also got a much better reprint at Mythic, Sword of Feast and Famine, coming along, of course, with a really sweet looking box topper. The sword art on the box toppers is just off the charts good in this set. So Sword of Feast and Famine, the pro black and green sword that untaps all your lands, makes the opponent that you hit discard a card, is actually maybe the most playable sword. It does show up in Stoneforge decks, in formats like Modern, formats like Legacy. I think it probably ranks behind Sword of Fire and Ice there, but it's in the conversation for best sword in formats like Modern and Legacy. Where Sword of Feast and Famine really shines, though, is in Commander, where I believe it is the #1 most played sword in the Commander format, and that's because Sword of Feast and Famine, the ability to untap all your lands, is very powerful, and that allows Sword of Feast and Famine to kind of break out of just equipment decks. Like, while equipment decks like Nahiri will play Sword of Feast and Famine, it also sees play in kind of like Voltron-y decks like Rafik or Akroma, because it's just a really good effect. You can float on your mana, cast stuff main phase, kind of double your mana. It's like having your own Wilderness Reclamation or Fires of Invention if you can keep getting in hits with it. So Sword of Feast and Famine, really solid reprint. The box topper going to be really expensive. As much as it's kind of sad to see Maelstrom Nexuses and guess, nothing bad to say about more Sword of Feast and Famines in existence. We also got Fulminator Mage, and Fulminator Mage, this is a card that maybe more than any is a testament to the power of Master Set's reprintings. If you look at the price chart on Fulminator Mage, it was not that long ago that it was a $30 card. Fulminator Mage now, guess what price it is, now that it's been reprinted again? It is pre-ordering for in the $2 price range. And all that's happened to this card is it's been reprinted in a few Master Sets. So if you're someone who thinks that Master Sets do not have an impact on the price of cards, this is a good example of how that definitely isn't true. Just being reprinted in some Master Sets in the course of like 2 or 3 years has taken Fulminator Mage from $30 to $2. It's a budget card now. Anyone can play it in any deck they want to, and that's good news because Wizards has put a lot of Tron pieces, not just the lands, but the cards, everything in this set. So I expect that more people are going to buy into Modern Tron because presumably all these reprints are going to make it cheaper. Fulminator Mage, one of the better cards for fighting against Tron, just blowing up Tron lands, and you can surgical it, then you can reanimate your Fulminator with Unearth or something, blow up another Tron land. So having some hate to the Tron lands, being budget friendly, is a really big deal. Also, the other place that Fulminator has seen some increase in demand recently is it shows up in the Elemental deck. It is, oddly, an elemental, which means you can tutor up with Flamekin Harbinger. So sometimes people play maybe like one Fulminator in the main and a bunch more on the sideboard. If you can Omnath to put a counter on your Thunderkin Awakener, you can even start reanimating Fulminator every single turn to just blow up a land and kind of lock your opponent out of the game. So Fulminator Mage, pretty big deal price-wise. It is now about as cheap as a playable Modern card can get. Coming back at Rare, if you need copies, you can pick them up. I'm sure that before long, we will be having a Budget Magic featuring Fulminator Mage because the price is just ridiculously cheap now, which is super exciting. Speaking of swords, we also got Sword of Body in mind, which is traditionally one of the worst swords, at least the worst of the original 5, not counting like the Modern Horizon swords, but Sword of Body in mind, it's considered the worst for a couple of reasons. One is protection from blue and green, not the best protection colors. When you think about decks that have lots of removal, typically blue and green are at the very bottom of that list, so the protection is not that relevant, and for constructed at least, the ability is kind of meh. You get a 2/2, okay, that's something. And you mill your opponent for 10, which may or may not be an upside. Like, I guess if you mill your opponent out, it's good, but you might be actually, like, filling your opponent's graveyards with stuff they want to reanimate or can flash back or can delve away. So, Sword of Body and Mind, because it's one of the worst constructed swords, it's not that expensive. It's like $17. This should help bring the price down. On the other hand, the box topper is really sweet, and it's worth mentioning that Sword of Body and Mind, while it's one of the worst swords in 60 card, in 100 card formats, it's actually one of the best swords in Limited. In Limited, milling for 10 a turn is actually an absurdly fast clock. Sword of Body and Mind can win a game by itself in 3 attacks, which makes it the fastest sword clock, even faster than Sword of Feast and Famine, Sword of Fire and Ice, any of those swords. Fastest sword clock at just killing your opponent, even faster than Sword of War and Peace in many situations, where 3 hits for sure wins the game, and in the late game, sometimes it's just 2 hits to kill your opponent. So, definitely nice to see it back. The box topper art is really good. The box topper art on all the swords have been spectacular. So even though it's a low-end sword, it's still a sword, still a sweet reprint. We also got the return of Mesmeric Orb, which is a card that's kind of oddly expensive. It's expensive for 2 reasons. One is, it sees a lot of play in mill decks, in Modern, also in the Commander format. Number 2 is, it's never really been reprinted. It was originally from the old school Mirrodin block, so it's like 20 years old, doesn't have a reprint. Price has slowly been creeping up to like $23, $25, so it is a high value reprint right now, and if you want to build mill, in Modern, with Hedron Crabs and Glibsy Unthinkables, Mesmeric Orb is one of your go-to cards. It mills so many cards as long as it sits on the battlefield, and the same is mostly true of Commander. So if you're building Bravik or Sir Conrad or Phoenix, Mesmeric Orb is going to show up in your deck consistently, because remember, it mills whenever a permanent becomes untapped. So that means your opponent taps all their lands to cast a spell. When they untap the next turn, they're going to have to mill 8 cards, 10 cards, however many lands they have, and it doesn't even include attacking with creatures, taps creatures, so this is just a huge chunk of repeatable mill every single turn, one of the fastest mill cards in the format. Of course, there is risk as to sit on the battlefield. If your opponent just blows it up, you could get no value, but when it sticks out, it is a really awesome mill card, so really sweet reprint, valuable and playable, both in Commander and in Modern. Speaking of Tron pieces, they keep coming. I swear Wizards is trying to reprint the entire Tron deck in this set. Ancient Stories returns, one of the key pieces for digging through your deck to find your Tron lands, find your payoffs, going 5 cards deep for a colorless card, which includes all lands because they're colorless. Also sees play in Hardened Scales, worth a little bit, couple of dollars, can't go wrong with that. At common is some free value in the set, so another solid lower rarity reprint, another way to make Tron, for better or worse, cheaper for players to buy into in Modern. We also got today from Wizards the tokens of Double Masters, and there's a ton. There's 31 different tokens in the set, and I mean, I don't really know what to say about them other than that they exist, and some of them look pretty sweet. Some of them are old. Definitely seen like this Demon token before. Pretty common. Merit Lage, that one's been done before. On the other hand, I don't think I've ever seen this beast before, unless I'm missing it, so we're getting some new ones as well. There's also, like, a sweet Golem, the Tuk the Return token's really cool, new Werb Coil tokens, and what I believe is the first ever copy token. It just represents a permanent that's copied, which is kind of interesting. We haven't really seen that before, so I'm curious if that means anything for the future. Maybe there'll be more copy tokens, maybe there's different copying effects coming, so I don't know. But those are the tokens. You can check them out. I will link the WotC article about the tokens in the description if you want to look at them all yourselves. Finally today, in terms of value, 2 things to talk about. One is catching up on just the average value. Average Mythic still dropping down to $26.97. Average Rare down even more to $4.11. Median values even lower, showing the amount of variance. And this today is partly because of getting some bad cards. Honestly, yesterday we talked about how prices were down, but that was more because like Jace getting way cheaper and other staple cards getting way cheaper. Well, today the big reason is Karthus is, Maelstrom, Nexi, etc., etc., etc. Some bad cards showing up. So this, for the first time, means that the value of a booster pack, discounting foils, is likely to be a little bit negative EV at this point if you're paying $15 a pack. So that is interesting, and it means one really big thing, that buying double masters is primarily going to be about box toppers. So let's assume that when it's all said and done and you add in foils and a little extra value there, let's say that your normal booster pack or booster box is roughly going to break you even with value, which is roughly what we're looking at. I think once we add foils in, that is more or less where the EV is likely to end up. You open a $15 pack, on average, you're probably going to get about $15 of cards out of that pack with really high variance. So be warned, a single pack is not going to give you $15. Some packs are going to give you $80. Some packs are going to give you $0. If you open a bunch, it should equal out to about the break-even point, which means what you're getting as far as value is box toppers. And we have almost all the box toppers. I believe we're missing like one mythic box topper and 2 rares, something like that at this point. So we've seen almost all of them. So going by our current box toppers, our current non-foil prices, right now, the mythic box toppers, the ones that you will get half as often as the rare, their average price is $144. So if you get any one of those, it's going to be insane. As far as the rares, and this kind of surprised me, the rares, which will show up twice as often, even including some kind of duds, like Council's Judgment, $27, Metamorph, $21, Tronlands, mid-$30, but even including the not good ones, the average value, thanks to the ones that are good, the Fatal Pushes and Thoughtseizes and Stoneforge Mystics, is still $61. So what this means is, let's say you're buying a booster box of Double Masters. Your booster box itself, on average, is going to roughly break you even. However, your value is going to come from getting those 2 box toppers. Worst case, let's say you get the 2 worst possible box toppers. Let's say you get Phyrexian Metamorph and Council's Judgment. I think those are the 2 lowest value ones right now. Even just those 2 horrible box toppers, that's still $50 in value. So if you break even on everything else and you get $50 worth of box toppers, you're still coming out ahead on average. Let's say you get 2 average rare box toppers, discounting mythics altogether. You're going to get over $100 in value if you just get average value out of them. Let's say you get like a Stoneforge Mystic and a dud. That's going to add up to over $60 of value a piece on average. Then, if you throw the mythics into the mix and you get lucky and hit a mythic in your box, you basically just win by hitting a mythic box topper in general. Yes, you could get a bad one like Sneak Attack. That's the only one that's like truly bad so far. Other than that, most of them are $100 or close to it, and several are $500, Mana Crypt $300. So I think that's how you look at these boxes. When you buy a booster pack, it's often not going to be good. I think if you are considering buying Double Masters, most of the value comes from getting the box toppers. So rather than buying a booster pack or a few booster packs, I think that value-wise, you're going to come out ahead being able to buy a booster box exclusively because you're going to get these valuable box toppers, and that's where the value from the set really comes in. Like we talked about, the value of the set proper, very likely going to be around the break-even point, all things considered. So if you're thinking of buying the set, definitely go for a box so you get the box toppers, because that is where the value is really at. So anyway, that brings us to the end of our daily Double Master spoilers today. We should have the full set, I believe, tomorrow. Worst case, Friday morning when they do the full spoiler dump. So we should know everything very soon. As you can see, 87%, 88%. We're almost there with the full set. Anyway, what do you think? What do you think of the new swords? What do you think of the box toppers? What do you think of these prices? Is it worth getting a box so you can get the valuable box toppers? Are you just going to ignore the set altogether and pick up singles, which is looking like a really good plan with how cheap the Fulminators and Jaces and all these playable cards have become thanks to the reprinting? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.